what we want to do is to connect basically, the world into public safety and to connect the public safety into the world. So if you can, improve that system and make it more efficient, every successful company needs two things: cash flow and good people.
Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to the Deal Maker Show. So super excited, with the guest that we have today. Again, Startup Nation. I mean, there seems to be a machine there of incredible founders that is pumping one after the other. So I guess without further ado, let's welcome our guest today, Amir Elichai. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Very well. So you were born in Israel, in Tel Aviv there. So how was life growing up there?
Oh, I think Israel is the probably most amazing place on earth. The amazing combination between good people, good weather, good food, all together, and obviously the great ecosystem for companies like Carbine to succeed. So overall, I would give it a grade of a 9.5, I would say.
Very cool. And in terms of you growing up, did you have anyone in the family, or how did you get that perhaps a drive or that bug around entrepreneurship? Would that develop later on, or it was something that it was there in the back door, always nurturing?
No, actually, it's a good question. Actually, my two of my parents are full-time workers in a very kind of well-organized big corporates. My mom in the healthcare space, my father in the aerospace industry. No entrepreneurship at all. I think the biggest investment that they ever did is when they bought their home, and since they're working on their savings, nothing really beyond that. Probably something raised from the army, probably something raised from my personal experience and things that I've been through, but nothing came from my personal background, I would say.
So then, going to the army, because the army is a pretty big deal in Israel. I mean, everyone has to go through it. So in your case, I find that being an entrepreneur and doing startups is like going to war, right? It's
Sure.
just kind of like the same thing, obviously in a different way. You don't probably get hurt physically, let's
Yeah.
say, but it's still a painful, full of emotions, type of roller coaster. So I guess what how was that experience for you of doing the army, and what were some of those traits that it gave you now, that you're an entrepreneur?
Oh, this is a great question. So I think in general, being in the army when you're 18, instead of going to college or university, you basically found yourself in a very kind of a strict organization with certain rules that you have to accommodate, which is basically probably making the Israelis, I would say, a bit more mature earlier than others, and put you in front of dilemmas and situation that you're not really supposed to experience when you're 18 years old, if you're looking at the overall kind of world and what people in our age used to do. So of course, for everything you have pros and cons. So I would say the advantage of being in the army is basically it's kind of show you, how to treat kind of things that are related to work under pressure, how to, being well in kind of a big teams where you have to get along with people that you don't know, how to motivate people, how to motivate your subordinates, work under pressure, putting red lines. That if you're thinking about those things are very similar to things that you're going to do as an entrepreneur, as a CEO within your internal small organization that is like your kind of own small unit within the army. So of course that there is nothing to really compare between the two. And as you said, you're not risking your life. But being an entrepreneur, being a founder with another two or three founders that are working with you, this is kind of your small unit or small unit in the army that is now, as you said, going into the world and going into a fight with big giants to tackle something. And if you have those skills coming from the army, so I think it's increasing your situation to be more successful. Not always, of course, but it's absolutely giving you kind of a lesson that you won't be able to learn anywhere else.
So in your case, after the army, you packed the bags and you land in New York City. So how did that happen?
Oh, this is was an absolutely kind of I would say a coincidence. Actually, in my specific unit where I was, we had different agencies and entities that came to us to pitch us what we can do after the army. So while a lot of my friends went to very long trip in Latin America, did their 1 year after the army, losing their mind somewhere, drinking and doing other stuff. I don't know why, but I had a girlfriend at the end of the army, and basically we had a vision kind of to move and live in New York. So in one of the pitches that we received from one of the three-letter agencies of the Israeli Defense Forces, at the end of the presentation, I came and said, "Listen, this is very interesting. I would love to do it." So they say, "Okay, we have an openings in Ethiopia, in Egypt, in many like different places." I said, "No, no, no, you don't. You got it wrong. I will do it only in one place. I will do it in New York if you want." And said, you know what, let me come back to you because it was very unusual because on the one hand, it's very attractive and sexy to live in New York. On the other hand, when you're finishing the army, all what you want is to save money. And obviously, New York is not a great place to save money in. So I found myself here anyway. Like I finished the army 10 days after I started a course for like few months, and then moved to live in New York. Celebrate my I think 23rd, 24th birthday here in New York. An amazing, amazing experience where basically opened my mind to a new world, different opportunities, new kind of people, and the rest is history.
So how would you say? Because I mean, it's interesting because I also moved to New York City at the same age as you did, and for me it was an eye opener. I mean, I'm sure that for you, being surrounded by the best of every place in the world that you can think of in terms of like intellect, ambition, and all of that, I'm sure that that played quite an influence as well on you and the way that you're thinking about the future that you want to live into. So tell us about this.
Yeah, I think it's starting from the smallest thing that you can imagine. First of all, the transition from being in the army, in such a kind of I would not say boring because it's not boring, but it's very kind of you know structured place where there is no too much space to think out of the box. You have certain rules you have to accommodate. Suddenly you find yourself without your family, without your friends, being kind of alone in front of the world in the biggest city in the world in terms of all what we just mentioned, you know talent, business, traffic, people are running everywhere, buildings. You're kind of asking yourself, okay, what is my role in this huge concrete jungle? And you basically your brain start to think, what can I do, how can I leverage this place, how can I do more. And I remind you that at that time I worked for like one of the agencies at the Ministry of Defense. So it's not that I was basically jobless or something. I had enough things to do, but basically you're here, you're meeting people, and you're saying, okay, this is an amazing place, I have an opportunity, how can I take that to the next step? And basically it's absolutely opened my eyes for what other things you can do in this world, which is uh, not the thing that you used to see in Israel, which is pretty small and kind of limited place, I would say.
And I guess it opened your eyes towards becoming potentially a lawyer, at least study law. So, I mean, what were you thinking? I mean, from recovering lawyer to recovering lawyer, I mean, what was going through your head to study law?
No, this is the good question. So basically, I started here my first company in New York, and then it was kind of a virtual investment banking firm. And at that time, I used to work for certain people who told me that you have to get kind of a degree and you have to learn something. So I after 1.5 years, I went back to Israel. I graduated from law and business school, and I immediately realized, and I knew from the beginning that that I'm not going to be a lawyer. I never practice, but I think that law in general is kind of the new BA, right? It's like the basic that you need to know, and it's relevant for everything that you are doing. No matter if you are a CEO, CFO, salesperson, working in product management or whatever. At the end of the day, legal understandings in general it's the basic in any business that you will do, and this is why I did it. As I said, I never practiced, but it was a great kind of knowledge to being captured, and this is why I did it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I mean, definitely gives you a base, and especially if you want to be making deals, and you need to interpret what the hell is on paper. So because it can come and bite you later on. So I guess after you finish, you got your law degree. You really started getting your feet wet. Into deal making. You talked about your previous business, the iBanking, but essentially that is the segue into starting your business now. So tell us about Carbine. So how you came up with the idea or how it came knocking. As Richard Branson says, is that ideas are like buses, and it's all about getting into the right one, into the right idea, into the right bus. So how did the idea of Carbine really go in front of you, and what was that point or that inflection where it pushed you over the edge to say, you know what, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to execute and bring it to life?
Yeah, so I think before I'm jumping into Carbine, it's worth to mention that before Carbine, even during my school, like university and law school, I was involved in the startup ecosystem in Israel a lot, from my own thing with Sky Project to helping companies to raise funds. We help companies to raise tens of millions of dollars. From taking myself into kind of building a small investment vehicle into cybersecurity solutions, automotive vehicles, etc. So basically, I probably reviewed myself and with my team at the time something like 1,500, I don't know the exact number, of opportunities. And basically, I realized kind of, and I had a good understanding what's the customer, like what's the industry needs. I had a good understanding of, what are the verticals that are growing, etc. For example, we chose to focus on cybersecurity back in 2010, where we had in Israel, I think, 100 good companies. Today, in these days, you probably can find in Israel five to, I don't know, 600 companies in the cybersecurity space. So I think we've been recognizing those kind of trends in an early stage, and this is what kind of prepared me to start my own venture, as always starting with a personal experience. So basically, I've been robbed in Tel Aviv beach. It was like a super weird story. I was 7 p.m. Gordon Beach. I was dating with a girl, and we've been robbed by three people. It's like 7 p.m. as I said, in the middle of Tel Aviv. And when this case happened, I tried to call emergency services to report about what was happening. And the call takers start to ask me for my name, where am I, what happening around me, and I thought to myself afterwards, how come that still in the 21st century, when we're dialing emergency services, we need to deliver so much information, and how come that when you're ordering Uber, the driver know your name, where are you, your credit card number, and basically anything about you. It don't make sense. And so how you're making data accessible for emergency services worldwide? And this is how I started. And basically, I did my research. I was never a 911 call taker before. I never was involved in any voluntarily kind of organization to help emergency cases, but I recognize a need. And what I did immediately is to validate if this need is not like a one-time event that happened to me, and if it's something that is happening worldwide, if there is a need for it. And pretty soon, I would say a few months, I realized that this market has not been changed since Bell invented the phone, basically, and there is a need for a change. I couldn't imagine that Carbine will grow to what it is now, but overall, I think it's a combination of a need that I have personally experienced, a big market that is seeking for a change, which is not sexy enough for many companies to get into, okay, which is represent a huge opportunity for growth and for being a very big company. And those kind of things and feedbacks that I get from the industry basically forced me to start this company.
So how long did it take from the moment that you were robbed at the beach to the moment that the company was up and running?
So let's say I don't understand the exact date when I've been robbed. I think it was like at the end of 2013. I had it in my mind and I did my research. I was still student. In July 2014, basically we decided to move forward and to incorporate this as a real company. And something like 7 to 8 months after, we received our first funding and started a company.
That's amazing. So what ended up being the business model of Carbine? What is Carbine today? How do you guys make money?
Sure. So currently the company is a bit like 130 people working from 4 offices worldwide and providing advanced ecosystem for government to be able to interact in a better way with their citizens, okay, in emergency and non-emergency events. The company is giving services to 400 million people and basically providing a software as a service for government. It can be implemented at no time and to convert any incoming call into emergency number to a one with location services, video, images, medical information, and bunch of other stuff without the need for the citizen to download any application and without the need for the government to replace anything of their current ecosystem. So this is in a very, very, very high level what we are doing.
So you probably must have heard of many, many crazy emergency calls and experiences. So I mean, what is the typical, emergency, or what is the typical experience that you guys facilitate or provide or are exposed to?
Wow, our system analyzes something like 1.3 million calls per day. Okay, we are
Wow.
the biggest, richest, rich data provider worldwide. We've provided in 2020, as you can assume, COVID was an emergency year. I would
Yeah.
say we've provided 155 million locations to emergency services around the world, 1.3 million minutes. So it's really, really, really different. And we saw anything from, emergency medical reports to, car accidents to good cases like ladies that are delivering babies with Carbine solution, bank robberies, you name it. That basically everything passed through our platform. So good and bad cases, but I think in most of the cases, our solution was really helpful and really helped the people in distress to, to get a better response.
So how much money have you guys raised to date, Amir?
Um, Close to 60 million.
And you were mentioning that the first tranche, came in pretty quickly. No, I mean, how would you say that the progression of getting that money in has evolved over time? I mean, you had some experience on the investment banking side, doing some deal work in the past, so perhaps you knew how to get it done. But it seems that it was very early on when you were able to get money right away. So how has that experience of being exposed to it from more like the deal maker side or the investment banker side to actually you being the operator and you needing that money in order to execute?
I think it's a very, very good question, and it's really there is not like it's not black and white. I think it's not like something that I can tell you, you need to do A, B, and C, and you will be a successful fundraiser or not. But I think there is kind of a basic elements that every entrepreneur needs to make sure that when he's coming to raise fund, those are the key elements, especially in the seed rounds. Like we have no track record. You're not a second timer. It's the first time that you are building a company. What is important is the team that's with you. Who are the people? What are the skills that you are bringing? Why you are unique? Obviously the idea, okay, that should be making sense at the level that the investors or the people that they are pitching this idea to probably seeing many, many, many deals before or on a daily basis, so they need to be convinced there is something unique here. You need to do your market research and to make sure that your total available market is big enough and have enough kind of place for you to grow into, okay. And basically those are the key elements in a seed round: strong team, strong idea, and the big market to play in, because at the beginning it's kind of a bet. The investors don't know you. If you have those three elements, it's mostly going into the strong team. If you have those elements, you will be in a higher chances to raise money.
So how have you seen, for example, those expectations shift or perhaps change as you continue to execute? Because you've done your seed, you've done your A, you've done your B. So how have you seen those expectations and perhaps the need or what you wanted from the investor for your business? Because it's not the same network that you're looking after at a seed round versus maybe the network that you're looking more at a series B, where it's all about expansion and growth. So tell us about this a little bit.
Yes, a very, very good question. So there is a long answer here. So first of all, I think a network is building a network, and I will explain. You are surrounding yourself with certain people, with certain investors, okay? That each one of them knows certain people and certain investors, that each one of them knows certain people and certain investors, and you're coming into a place that with the two phone calls, you can probably reach to any funds or to any person that you want to invest in your company. So my first kind of lesson is basically you need to surround yourself with people that are strong enough in your industry to be able to grow your network with their own network, right? So you know 10 people, those 10 people know 10 people, so it's 100 people. Those 100 people each 10 know 10 people each, so it's 1,000 people. So this is my first thing. So in the seed, you're surrounding yourself with X amount of people. If it's funds, is obviously even bigger because they have teams and they have people working from them, blah blah blah. So those they know 20 people, 30 people, 40 people. So one. Related to the staging and what you're looking for, etc. So there is kind of the key, I would say, metrics or what investors are looking for at round and like at seed A, B, etc. So seed, team, idea or prototype, and strong and big market, right? Around A, like early adopters, few logos, like the beginning of revenues, understanding the market, optimizing product market fit, and basically Bree is kind of you're getting into the growth phase. You are growing from 1 million to 5 million in recurring revenues. You have a product market fit, and in the B round, you're basically raising this fund that will take you to the next stage, which is basically growth phase, where you can purely say, I'm in a product market fit. All what I need now is to put more fuel into the engine in order to scale my business and do 10x because I know I found kind of the formula to make this business a success, right? So this is kind of the traditional, I would say, path. Besides that, I would say that there is other elements that you cannot really predict, which is a bit of luck as well. I can tell you that I know companies that was an amazing trajectory before COVID, and then COVID hit and they were, totally collapsed. And I know companies that were struggling a lot before COVID, and then COVID came and they are exploding, right? And everything was like amazing for them. So I think luck. I would not say that this is like 50% of your success to be successful, or chance to be successful, but I would say that you need to have a bit of luck in this journey, which is always important, and take all those kind of elements into consideration. And if you understand those elements, I think again you're increasing your chances to win this war, which is absolutely not an easy one.
Yeah, and definitely luck, preparation meets opportunity. So it's
Exactly.
a people create their own luck. It's not like things all of a sudden fall on your plate. So, but I'm right there with you. So, I guess in your guys' case in Carbine, let's say I mean, you were alluding to it. I mean, we're coming out of what has been an emergency year. I'm sure that perhaps an emergency year is something that propels and influence positively, a service like Carbine. I mean, how would you say that this whole COVID, has impacted, the business?
Yeah. So let's start from the end. In COVID, like in 2020, from March to December 2020, Carbine grew by 360%. And this is what led our last round, like 25 million. And it was a pretty successful year. But on the other hand, I would say that, again, it's not like that we were sitting down and hoping for good when COVID started. We had to take some tough decisions that, influence cross company, such as an example. I decided as a CEO of the company not to let people go home at all. We didn't know how governments will react. We didn't know, if governments will be able to pay. We didn't know if, how governments who used to meet you face to face before COVID will willing to do deals now remotely. Is it possible? Yes, no. Can they sign an electronic signature and DocuSign as we are all used to do? Is it something that is valid for them? So we was in a very big uncertainty. So I decided to cut salaries for the entire company, but not let anyone go. And basically, we gave equity for this kind of a salary loss for March to July. And in July, we saw that everything is basically exploding kind of, and we are delivering, and things are going in a very very good way. So all in all, I think we did very well, and then we decided to return everything to normal and actually expanding the teams and growing. So you know we've been lucky enough to be in the right, I would say, industry with the right solutions. But again, we did the necessary steps in order to make sure that we are adjusting ourselves to this new environment.
Absolutely. So then talking about new environments and talking about the future. Let's say you go to sleep tonight, Amir, and you wake up in a world where the vision of Carbine is fully realized. What does that world look like?
Wow, this is a good question. So I think moving forward, what we want to do is to connect basically the world into public safety, and to connect the public safety into the world, and to make sure that all this kind of chain is fully singing together, right? So we truly believe that there is no reason why sensors and IoT and wearables and city cameras and you name it will be able to detect emergencies before someone human dialed 911. So anything that can deliver information, anything that can communicate in case of emergency should be connected to emergency services. But it's not enough to connect them to the emergency services, because you really need to create what we call the next generation queue, right? The next generation queue is that currently in 911, when you are dialing, there is a human sitting, pick up the phone, saying 911, what is the location of the emergency? What is the emergency? And start to ask you many questions. So technologies like NLP, transcription, can really ease the way that those call takers are doing their job. The ability to provide sensors information into the systems without the human needs to tap into any kind of information can ease a lot the ways those call takers are making their job. This job is very stressful. There is a lot of human errors, a lot of human mistakes. They're working under pressure. So if you can, improve that system and make it more efficient with computer vision, artificial intelligence, and other technologies that are out there and serving other industries. So I believe that we will be able to create a system that is almost, I would say, fully automatic, and basically minimize human mistakes, increasing efficiency, and simplifying, the access of humans into emergency response. So this is what we would like to do. There is a long way to make it happen, but I think we are doing the right steps in order to make it work.
I love it. So, Amir, let's say that I'm giving you the possibility to get into a time machine, and I'm taking you back in time. And I'm taking you to that moment where you were coming out of law school, you were starting to see, a little of deal making here and there and being involved with startups. And, right before launching your business, you have, let's say you have the opportunity of having your younger self, Amir, not only being there, but listening to what you have to say. To what the now Amir that has gone through all this stuff with Carbine. If you could go back in time and give that younger Amir one piece of advice, what would that be, and why before launching a company based on what you know now?
Wow. Uh, I have a lot of lessons that I learned throughout the recent 6 years. I would say that probably, don't compromise on a very, very, very good people. I think this is the key. And one smart person once told me that, every successful company needs two things: cash flow and good people. So I think I would say do not compromise on the talents that you're hiring, because at the end of the day, this is, if we are going to the analogy that you've started this conversation with, this is your friends that are going to run with you into this war, and you need to surround yourself with the best people. So I think investing time and finding the most talented people that you can find in order to be better prepared for the, you know, unknown. This is something that I would advise my child when he will build his company.
I love it. I love it. So, Amir, for the folks that are listening, what is the best way for them to reach out and say hi?
I think either through LinkedIn, Instagram, or through my email, which is Amir, AMIR, at carbine911.com. Happy to speak with everybody.
Amazing, Amir. Well, thank you so much for being on the Deal Maker Show today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.